Great. How many grad students do we have in the audience? Nice, let's go. And then undergrads? All right, cool. So I have at one point been an undergrad and now I'm currently a grad student. So before I get started about my journey here and what I considered a bit of a failure where we can all learn from it, I was studying science at Johns Hopkins University. So I was doing a Bachelor of Science in Molecular and Cellular Biology, and I really wanted to cure the world. So I started doing research and started trying to become a doctor, etc. And that kind of fell through for multiple reasons. And I ended up pivoting to do some pharmaceutical research, studied some malaria vaccines, and ended up doing pharmaceutical sales. And throughout this journey, throughout this transition, I was always trying to find myself as I continuously wanted to sort of change the way things were done, maybe make them a little bit faster, a little bit easier. And in the fields of medicine and bench research, that wasn't always very doable. So ultimately, I ended up pivoting into an MBA program. After doing some pharmaceutical sales and having a very large territory of around 3 hours to trying to see some of my physicians, I wanted to do virtual sales to them. However, this was incapable at the moment due to different authentication systems and HIPAA regulations. So as we tried developing the system, eventually COVID hit, and our current CRM provider had a solution that they ended up rolling forward, and that's when I decided I wanted to sort of take control over my creations, my creativity, and pivot into business school. My biggest passion is actually digital technologies and video games. I find them to be incredibly grasping, entertaining, and can really help people through a lot of difficult times. And I wanted to make my own video game where individuals who created assets in this game were able to then profit from them, sell them, etc. And then I realized that I was building a casino. So I ended up having to do research on sort of gambling and having to authenticate my users and go through a process called KYC, which is know your customer. Some of you might have done it for some sort of banking applications where you take a picture of your ID front and back, get authorized, etc. Long story short, this was a process that no one was going to go through for a Pokemon style game. Ultimately, I found myself getting really involved in the I&E department and trying to really solve this problem about authentication, how we can make it more seamless without having to require users to give up all of their private data, etc. And this sort of began my journey into now what I'm currently working on as part of my MBA program, which is called a non-ID, which is an authentication system that doesn't require private data or third parties. And ultimately where this journey takes us is through Jamie Jones's class, who eventually developed one of those. It was a great time and really led into us being able to work on this project over the summer. We received the Fucus Founders Grant, thanks again to the I&E department, and we were able to explore scaling this as we've learned from Jamie Jones's class, how to find our first customer. We found a casino as well as a digital art marketplace and some other instances to use this technology. And at the time, we're coming off of a big high from cryptos and NFTs and these sorts of big hype projects. I think electric vehicles went to the moon as well. And it all had to do really with this interest rate thing, which I ended up learning about in my MBA a little bit afterwards. So going into this experience, we had this great strategy kind of coming off of this hype where a lot of these companies had tools, they had new technologies, but they didn't really have a place to use them or apply them. But they had tons of capital and were really trying to throw money at trying to find solutions for this problem, or rather places for their solutions to be used, problems for their solutions to be used, excuse me. So our approach was to find a place to use our solution first and then build the solution. So hence the casino contract and the art contract. And I'm gonna get to basically the failure real quick. Ultimately, once we had these customers in place, we had our business model in place, we had built up a team, we had the full 9 yards, we really felt ready to go into the next big step, which is to raise capital. And over the summer, we spent about two and a half months, which in the grand scheme of things is not a long time. Most people spend about 6 months raising capital. However, we were able to fail fast and learn quickly. Once we got out there, we started hearing things along the lines of, but who's actually going to use this technology? Do you have any customers currently using this technology? Can I see a demo? Can I see an MVP? Can I try this technology? Do you know how to code? To all of these questions, I had to say no. I don't know how to code. We do not have this technology yet, but we have customers who want to build this. I've done years of research. We have a CTO on board. We can deliver. Please give me $500,000. Needless to say, no one gave us $500,000. It was a bit of a roller coaster. At first, people were very excited. I guess the state of the market hadn't really settled in yet. People were still dealing from a few months back, not really able to look far into the future. But at the very beginning, when we first started raising, we started giving things like, yeah, this is great. I could give you $200,000. I can give you $500,000. $500,000 is not a lot. And that's always fun to hear, by the way. But ultimately what ended up happening is that as push came to shove, no one wanted to be that first investment. And when we finally went through our rounds, everyone said, yeah, go through the rest of your audience, come back to us, let us know what they say. We ended up going one by one and saying like, hey, we've gone to everyone, will you be the first? And needless to say, each individual, for the reasons I mentioned before, said no. We need to see technology. One of our advisors who previously told us they could give us $200,000 told me to take a year and learn how to code. And ultimately, it was a challenging moment. I think part of the difficulty or learning there is to try to internalize the feedback that we were getting. So it wasn't like, they were all correct in what they were saying. The market was not in a place of being able to invest in something that was illiquid, essentially, intangible. We didn't have any funding, we didn't have any technology, there was no collateral there. At the moment, we wanted to really push through that because we felt like we had our entire arsenal from 2022 ready to go. And ultimately dedicated about 2.5 months of going through this process and really getting nowhere. One of our closest advisors ended up telling me like, hey, it's been 2 months since you've met me and you really haven't done anything since you've met me, besides pitch to a bunch of individuals and develop, etc. So what we learned going forward is that don't try to go too hard against the grain and try to really get as far as you can with as little as you can, especially in times when the market's not so hot. What we ended up doing was we got into the Melissa and Doug program, which gives us a $5,000 grant. And ultimately, while we don't have that money yet, we decided to start building because we know we will be getting that soon. That being said, we have obviously downsized our trajectory and focused on a much smaller, about 10% of what we originally wanted to raise to get to our next 5% of what we originally wanted to raise to get to our next step. And really, I think it's just a lesson in kind of taking a chance on yourself, especially if you're asking other people to also take a chance on yourself, and then double down on that, especially if it's a bad market economy and people are trying to be more conservative in general. You'll just have to double down on betting on yourself and potentially do things that you weren't originally planning to do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we have a great support here in the community and we're still moving forward. And we're happy to say that we're not gonna wanna jinx anything, but we're still alive. So stay tuned to hear more. And the last thing I would encourage you all is to just really put in your best effort to get as far as you can and know that you're never gonna be perfect, you're never gonna be ready for anything, but you have to really give it that first step and go out there and get ready to fail. That's the only way to try.